Al Ingram
Here.
and Narce.
So she is still sitting in the attendees, and we have to get her moved over into the panelists.
Okay. Okay.
She is here though.
Okay. All right. We'll move on here with the flag salute and so on. And I think she'll join in the interim. And Noe Alvarez? Noe, are you here?
I don't see him on here either, Dave, or Mark, sorry.
Okay. Okay. All right. The school board will hear public comment for unscheduled public appearance received through the designated email address on the board page on the district website to be read by district staff at the appropriate time on the agenda. You may also provide a comment if you are registered for the Zoom meeting. And now we have, would you join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we do an introduction of the audience and staff that are present this evening, please?
John O'Neill, Assistant Superintendent.
Kevin Rain, Director of Human Resources.
David Warner, Communications.
Kimberly Shearer, Director of Student Services.
Enrique Pignon, Technology.
Brian Burke, High School Assistant Principal.
Erin O'Neill, High School Principal.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll move on to the approval of tonight's agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing none, then we'll call for a vote. Brad Bafero?
Yes.
Val Ingram?
Yes.
Kate Grandusky?
Yes.
I don't know if Narce's joined us. Narce?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm a yes as well. So that motion passes. So not seeing Noe here this evening, we'll move on to correspondence and celebrations, calendar notes, recognition, and the superintendent report at this time. So Mr. Parker.
Thank you. Thank you. First, I want to start out with our annual Division 22 standards for the 2019-2020 school year. And this is what we do every year. It's a little bit earlier this year. They've changed the timelines on this. But for the 2019-20 school year, the State Board of Education adopted OAR 581-022-0103 state standards. This rule temporarily established a streamlined set of Division 22 standards in effect for the 2019-20 school year, accommodating for the shift to emergency distance learning in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. For the 2019-20 school year, school districts were required to report on the Division 22 standards in this OAR 581-22-0103. Any standard not included in this rule is waived for the 2019-20 school year. And under these new temporary Division 22 standards, I'm pleased to announce that the Forest Grove School District was compliant and met all of those Division 22 standards for last year. Again, they're changing this timeline. So next year, we'll be reporting in the early fall how we did the 2020-21 school year. So that's the first thing. Second, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the status of our system. I've been asked a lot in recent days, kind of How are things going? How is school going? And I found myself challenged to answer the question. And I found myself trying to figure out why I was finding this hard. And it kind of comes down to, all in all, everyone is working extremely hard. Our teachers, our parents, our students are all trying hard to make this experience okay. What we're seeing in comments from parents coming back is we have some parents whose kids are moving along just fine. We have other parents whose kids are struggling in this environment. However, I don't think this format it's not what any of us would have wanted. So when you're asking me, how are we doing at school? What I would say is, our people are working so hard to try and meet folks' needs, and the communication, the evenings and the prep and preparation that folks are doing is extraordinary. But I think all of us want to be back to some sort of in-person instruction, and I don't think any of this is optimal. So when I come back to this question, how are we doing? I would say we're doing about as good as you would have expected in this situation. I think it's actually in a lot of ways better than it could be, but it's not what we wanted. And so in the end, I just want to say that to no fault of our people are doing great work. It's a really hard environment out there right now. So wanted to do a quick little shout out to both Forest Grove and NAMS. They held their back to school night. So I want to read a little piece that they talked about how they did this. Forest Grove High School did their back to school information night webinar Q&A for parents last Wednesday evening. This was their 4th Q&A for parents and was well attended. We've had between 100 and 300 participants at each session. This past evening, we had all of our leadership team, the department chairs, in attendance so that they could respond to some of the very specific questions about class expectations, homework, etc. By providing these Q&A sessions, parents have been able to ask numerous questions about CDL, hybrid, grading, activities, clubs, senior events, etc. Comments from the parents have been extremely positive and thankful for the hard work teachers, administrators, and classified staff have been doing to support student learning and engagement. I've heard that over and over again coming about the high school several times, where parents are recognizing just the amount of work that it's taking to make this come together. And then NAMS also held a back to school night. They held a webinar. Interpretation services were provided. All the teachers and support staff recorded videos that could be accessed synchronously or asynchronously. They had about 100 people who attended synchronously, and they've had about 175 folks go back and watch different videos from different teachers asynchronously. It's a little hard to know exactly how many folks have accessed the materials, but all in all, they felt like it was a good event and had good feedback from the parents about getting that extra information. And I'm going to talk more about some of the metrics and some of the other stuff coming up. So I'm going to leave that for my other conversations. But that's kind of what's going on in school. Any questions that I can answer for board members? Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Okay, unscheduled public appearance. The board appreciates community members sharing information during public comments. Are there any comments that have been received?
No, we haven't received any. Is that, you haven't received any last minute, Kathy, correct?
Correct. No comments.
Okay, all right, we'll move on then. Thank you. So the consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent items a board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? Okay, hearing none, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay. Call for the vote. So Brad Bafaro,
Yes.
Val Ingram,
Yes.
Narse,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, so that motion passes. We move on to presentations. This evening, it looks like we have 3 presentations, and the first of which is an enrollment update with from Mr. O'Neill. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, sir. This evening, can you see my screen, the enrollment report? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move it around a little bit. This is the enrollment report for October 1. And I emailed it to each of the board members and Dave Parker and Kathy Bonson for the record. I'd like to thank Deb Thrush, who is on tonight's presentation with me on this agenda item. She's done a terrific job this year, most challenging year to get these numbers, more so than usual because we're dealing with a lot of factors with comprehensive distance learning. These numbers represent only students that have shown up for a class since the start of school being held, and school secretaries at each of the buildings compiled student counts for this report. By this coming Wednesday, we'll have a more, even better accurate report because Deb will be able to run another report with the students dropped that have not shown up to date. So it's very likely that these numbers will be consistent. But I'll move this down a little bit so we can include some other schools such as Dilley, Echo Shaw, Joe Gale, Fern Hill. And then you can see the year to date total. Now what this number is October 1 or as close as possible. If that was a Saturday or Sunday, they'd take the following Monday. That was last year's count, 5,927 students. This year, we have 5,565 students. That represents a total of 6.1% decline since last year, or 362 students. K4, that's 167 student drop, 5.6, 94%, 7.8, 58 student drop, and 9.12, 43. Now remember, this is compared to the date, 1 calendar year or as close as possible that we looked at last year. But you can see this is kind of telling as well in terms of the summary by grade. The trend continues this year in terms of a smaller incoming class. And you can see how it increases up to 3rd grade, 4th grade. And then you can see that kind of plateaus a little bit, 5 through 8, and then 9 through 12. 9th grade class is our largest class, followed by the 10th grade. But what's concerning to us, and the long-term board members know this, is that the outgoing 12th grade class is larger than the incoming kinder class. So that is a challenge as well. But you can see the high school plus Create plus Calc numbers have gone up a little bit. Transition is there listed as well. And then you can look down at the bottom and you can see the summary of this year compared to 1 year prior. Again, Wednesday, this Wednesday, we'll go ahead and drop the students. Deb, do you have anything to add at this point?
Nope, you covered it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Dave Parker shared with you the last board meeting, and I've heard in my assistant soups that we're seeing declining student enrollment this year. as we have opened in CDL in Washington County. Dave, would you like to share anything else?
Yeah, I think we're seeing across Washington County, we're seeing the same impacts. Small districts, large districts. I think everybody's seeing a fairly similar kind of pattern, with it being larger at the elementary level and then smaller as you get towards the older grades.
And Dave, Dave and John, I mean, we think that those are students who are electing to enroll in what you would call a traditional online school. Is that right?
Yes, but I'll also say that we're having a hard time tracking some of the students who gave us an intent to enroll in a charter school, and now they aren't enrolled in the charter school, so they need to be somewhere. And we're having quite a challenge making sure that we, like when they get unenrolled from that charter school, that we're following up with them and saying, okay, you got to be enrolled somewhere. So it's been, and it's not just us. Again, this is pretty much every district is really having some challenges tracking some of the students as they're moving to these alternative spaces.
And again, I'd just like to give a big shout out to our classroom teachers who are taking attendance virtually in an unknown new environment, digital environment, as well as Deb Thrush for helping compile these reports, as well as all the school secretaries.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brad. Do we know what the decline rate has been over like 3 years?
We can compile that for you.
Yeah, we'll get that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to know, because I remember it declined last year some too. And I was thinking maybe the year before, so just kind of curious.
Yep.
Thank you.
Dave and Mark, usually we come back at least one more board meeting after we have the drop students. If you'd like, we can bring that then. Or if you want it prior to the meeting, we can get it out to you before.
No, I'm in no rush. That's fine.
Yeah,
If it's fine with everybody else, I mean.
that sounds fine to me. So at the high school level, especially once you get to the upper grades, isn't it correct that if we can't track where they've enrolled, then do they remain Forest Grove students, John? And ultimately,
yes, they do. Legally, until we get a records request, they are ours.
So what I will say is that the high school actually has a really, they've got a very active attendance team who's actually tracking this with a spreadsheet, kind of tracking through all of these kids. So they actually have kind of put together some FTE to track down some of that because of that exact issue. I don't know if Karen wants to say if you need more explanation, but no, okay.
I have a question is, do parents, I guess, what legal requirement is for parents to enroll their students into school?
So the kindergartners is not actually in that. I should reference Kathy Bonson here, who has a better understanding of all of this. But my basic gist is that kindergartens don't necessarily have to enroll because that isn't a requirement yet. All the rest of the folks, you have to be registered with the ESD as a homeschool student if you're not in like a charter school that requests your records, that kind of thing. So that's where we're kind of tracking through these pieces. But there hasn't been, we have much, I mean, our communication with our virtual charters is okay, but our communication with these homeschool folks, once they leave our system, that hasn't been very good. So we're working a lot of things right now to try and improve that.
Is there any consequence if parents just decide they're just not going to send their kids to school because it's just too challenging?
Yes, for students that have enrolled with us in the past and we've not received a records request, we're reaching out. The counselors or attendance teams at the schools are, and then we would follow our truancy policy as we are required to by the state because they need to be enrolled in school. It's compulsory education law. So we just work with them to please give us, work with the school if they've entered somewhere else, because we have not yet received a records request. And then we can go ahead and transfer the records, and then we will cease and desist.
Yeah, my concern is that we already know that it's really challenging for the kinders, first, second graders. And like middle school and high school, they don't need to have a parent at home, but those other children do. And the loss of instruction has me really concerned. And so when do you start contacting the truancy people, 6 weeks into school, 12 weeks into school?
No, much longer down the road, months. Because, well, let me just clarify, like Superintendent Parker said, kinders do not need to enroll in education. And I think we're having some anecdotal conversations with parents, elementary principals are, that they're electing to keep their kids home this year. It's first grade that they are required to come in. But no.
So let me clarify, John, because of, yes, the truancy process is down the road, but they're already making phone calls, Kate. So the school's already out tracking down these kids. So there's this process may be long, but the actual, they're already doing that.
So I guess just a quick comment that we know we have the 10-day drop mark on Wednesday, correct? So we know that number will probably drop a little bit, go up a little bit more. That's been kind of the history. What does that look like for us from a financial standpoint next year? I think that's one thing that at some point, not right now, but at some point down the line, we should start to make plans for that.
Absolutely. Again, I think there's a lot of what we've heard anecdotally is that as we begin to get back to in-person instruction, folks want to begin to send their kids back to school. So there's a lot of unknowns here about how long this thing's going to last. It's kind of related to the next presentation too, but we're already beginning to start doing some of the financial modeling. Eileen is, as you all know, she's very concerned about where we're going to be in the spring and some of the impacts that we could be around staff if we don't have an idea of where the staffing's going to be, where the enrollment's going to be. Yeah.
So just another quick question. So in terms of being enrolled and attending, the student just has to click into one course. Is that what I'm hearing, John?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's per the ODE guidelines and requirements. They're extending a lot of grace, to families throughout the state this year. But Canvas, our learning management system, does a great job of tracking that. And so we can cultivate that data the following morning.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions for John? If not, we'll move on to the next presentation, and that's the metrics for the transition to the hybrid learning model from Mr. Parker.
So I wanted to spend a little bit of time. This is a last Monday, there was an article in the paper about the governor was going to sit down with ODE, OHA, the Department of Justice, and the governor's office was going to sit down and begin to look at these metrics. And I wanted to bring them back and make sure that everybody understood what they are, how our county has been reacting to them. We are coming together with a committee, and I'm going to talk about that at the end, to start putting together a recommendation to bring back to the board so that we can, but I wanted to make sure that everybody kind of knew what these metrics were and what they're about. So that's what I thought I'd do today. So here's the first set of metrics that were, and I tried to simplify this a lot because there's a lot to this, but the basic gist, and this is what was announced on July 28th by the governor, outlined by ODE, Oregon Health Authority. In the county, there's two basic metrics. There's a state metric, and then there's a county metric. This first metric is basically for us to resume K through 12, all grades, some sort of in-person hybrid, we need to be below 10 cases per 100,000 in the preceding 7 days for the last 3 weeks. So it's below 10 per 100,000 for 3 weeks in a row. We can begin to run some sort of in-person instruction again. The second part of that is the county's test positivity rate, which is the number of positive tests over the total number of tests given, has to be less than 5% in the preceding 7 days for 3 weeks. So those are the county metrics. The second set of metrics is the state metric, which says that you have to be, we have to not only comply with the county, but we also as a state need to be below 5%. What we're hearing is that they're going to go in and start talking about these, the metrics. And specifically, I think the ones they're going to talk about is the state metric. Because what's happening across the state is we have counties whose case rate is below 10, and they have test positivity below 5, and they could start to do some sort of in-person, but the state rate is still above 5%, so it keeps them from doing that. I think what the governor's going to do is they're going to go in and have conversations about how we can get more flexibility to counties about this. So that's the first, that's what I think is going to be happening over the next 3-4 weeks here at the state level. Now, with that said, there was another exception that came out in this language, and it came out right after the July 28th part. And the one that's applicable to us, there were a couple, like if you had a small county, then they had some slightly different metrics. This one is if you, it's an exception for getting kindergarten through 3rd grade or some combination of those things back into school. To do that, what you have to have is you have to have no confirmed cases in these district by either staff or students. We do get some information back from the county, the county health, but we don't get it all. So this is proving to be a little challenging because of not everybody who is impacted by COVID, either through a close contact or getting it themselves. It doesn't always come back to the district. If it happened outside of our district, it wouldn't necessarily come back to us. So this is a little bit of a challenge for us to always know exactly all the folks in the district. The second part of this is the case rate needs to be below 30, and you can begin to start looking at this. Again, you got to be below 30 for 7 days for 3 weeks in a row. And then the last two kind of check boxes here are the ones that we already know about, which is that we have a set of rules that the state has given us around how to run our hybrid. And so we have to comply with all of those rules. And then the county test positivity has to be below 5%, which is the other piece. So I wanted to give you an indication of kind of where we've been at. This has been our county between basically the beginning of July, and this is the total number of cases per week in our county. We started, the highest was right after July 4th at 356 cases in the county. And then this one right here was the low mark. September 6th, we had 160, and basically each week since then, and the last week I have here is October 4th. I just got that data about 10 minutes before the board meeting. We're just seeing a straight trend up in the county. I also graphed the cases per 100,000 because that's really the the data that we have to meet. This pink line down here is 10 cases per 100,000. That's where we have to be for us to open up our schools for a hybrid for students K through 12. We've been, in July again, we were up. We were steadily moving down in July and August, with the low point, again, with the low point being about September 6th at 26.2, just under 30. Since that point, we have basically been increasing every week at 30, 37, 42, 46. So I wanted to make sure people understood we're a long ways from getting towards these metrics. My next step is really to convene a committee to come together and start talking about how are we going to deal with that exception, the K through 3, when we could begin to bring them back, because there's a lot of things that we have to think about before we start to bring kids back into schools. Is 28 cases per 100,000, is that a place where we can open our schools where we won't spread the virus and then have to close again a week, 2 weeks into our reopening? So what is the right level there that we need to be at? A lot for us to think about there. I'm going to widen this committee. After my email on Friday, I got some feedback from parents about trying to provide more voice for our parents. So I'm gonna make some changes in the way I'm organizing that to make sure that we do that. I'll send out an email to folks letting them know. Currently, I have Kate and Mark kind of sitting on that committee as representatives of the board. I don't know if we want to stay with that, or I didn't mean to re-volunteer you for something, but I just know that we've got to sit down and start making some decisions about this timeline and what's going to be the acceptable values. We have negotiations with our employee groups that also bear into this. So there's just a lot of things to figure out. Then we'll bring the recommendation back to the board. The board will end up approving that recommendation, and then we'll go from there. We've got a lot of the school hybrid work done over the summer. This is really now this transition plan is really the hard part for us. Questions that I can answer about the metrics and where we're at?
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're getting any pushback from parents to open school?
I think it's a lot like my comments earlier tonight, which is everybody wants us to get kids back in school. I think the question is, when can we do it safely? And I think I've had parents on both sides of this talking to me about, hey, we need to get these kids back in school, and how do we do it safely? I think we're preparing. Last time we met, when we were talking about my goals, we were talking about a parent survey to go out and kind of get a feeling for how CDL is going. That's moving forward. I'm hoping, I don't know when I'm going to put it out yet, but we're hoping before the end of the month we get something out to parents so that they can express some feeling about how we're doing.
Okay. Thanks very much, Dave.
You're welcome.
Okay. Let's see here.
It's me again, too.
Okay, it's you again, too. I go back and forth on my screen.
Last board meeting, we had some questions about where we were standing on the Senate Bill 1049. So I just wanted to come in and let you know kind of how we're dealing with that, so that everyone kind of knows what our plan is. Reemployment of retired staff is policy GDPC-AR, and that's where this lives. I think we pushed that into the packet just so that everybody could see the full piece. This was necessitated by the passage of Senate Bill 1049 in the spring of 2019. It's a very big bill. There's lots to it. I'm not going to go through all of the details to it, but it was basically a bill that sought to help pay for more of the PERS's unfunded liability at the state level. I think they're in total, that was a savings of like 0.8% is why this bill got passed. It had some impacts for districts. The first one being salary limits for PERS retirees. So they put a cap on the amount of salary that you could claim when you retired. They redirected a portion of the IEP payments that employees were making to pay down the unfunded liability. It allows folks to work after retirement, and it redirects the PERS percentage to, again, help pay down the unfunded liability. Last is there's a whole bunch of other, like I think the biggest impact was they changed the length of time on the payback for PERS. It was kind of changing the length of time of a mortgage. It's that same kind of idea. So this is why this bill came about. We in our AR, basically we passed this last February 2020, and the base pieces to it are, if employees retire in the middle of the year, they can be offered a temporary contract until the end of the year. That's been our past practice so far. PERS retirees seeking employment with the district shall be required to submit to the established district recruitment and hiring processes in the same manner as all other applicants. So if a person wants to continue on after retirement, what they do is they declare their retirement, and then we go through our normal process. We will post the position, we'll screen for it, and then we will run a hiring process for that position. Rehired employees lose all seniority, and they become basically Probe 1 teachers, Probe 1 employees. And then we still maintain total control of whether to or not to reemploying the retiree, whether it's ours, or even more importantly, I think what's going to happen is folks from other districts who have retired will now begin to apply for positions. I tried to summarize that. I gave you the AR in the packet, but that's the basic gist. For us, what we will do is run our regular process. And then I can answer questions.
So Dave, just in terms of running the regular process, I know, I know in a perfect world, you'd know who was, how do I say this, who's retiring early enough that you could post and have enough time to get a large candidate pool. I'm just assuming that, maybe, I don't know, maybe, if you have some late retirees, you're still going to run the same process, even if it's late in the year, right?
Yes, I mean, I think the big challenge would be if we're, I'm thinking most of the time that's going to work fine, but I mean, I'm thinking about if we did an administrator and we were into June, we may have to do some thinking about what we want that to look like, because that could be a really challenging position to hire to if we got into that kind of realm. But the intention there is to run a process.
Okay, any other questions before we move on to the action items? Okay, thanks, Dave. We'll thank you very much. We'll move on to a number of action items this evening. Looks like 8 listed here. So we'll start with number 1 here. That's the board superintendent operating agreements for 2020 and 2021. And the board spoke about these at the last meeting. You have copies of that document in your board packet. And I, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve that, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So
I move that we approve the board superintendent operating agreements of 2020-21.
Second.
okay, all right. Now, are there any comments that that anybody has about the operating agreements? Okay. Hearing none, we'll take the vote then. So on the operating agreements, my vote is a yes. Narce,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
and Brad.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. So the next one is the board goals for 2020 and 2021. Again, we spoke to these at the last meeting. And again, the copy is in your packet. We made some changes to this document last time, and they're included in the document now. We'll use the same process. I'll move that we approve the board goals for 2020, 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now are there any comments or discussion that we need to have before we call for the vote on this? Okay. All right, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Brad?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
Marcy?
Yes.
Okay. Kate?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So that motion passes. Thanks. Number 3, flexibility of instructional hours for Forest Grove High School for 2020 and 2021. And this is Mr. O'Neill is going to speak to this one.
Thank you. As we discussed and approved for the 1920 school year, our board approved greater flexibility for high school students under the new rules that were offered to districts by Oregon Department of Education beginning last year, and allow local school boards additional flexibility when scheduling students and calculating their district compliance with Division 22 instructional hour requirements. The required instructional time for high school students is 990 hours for grades 9 through 11, and 966 hours for grade 12. To follow the new process outlined by the State Board of Education, our school board is to conduct a hearing at a school board meeting on this given topic. The board may then vote to approve increased flexibility for high school to grant student parent requests for early release, late arrival, and or an open period in their schedule should requests exceed the 80% mark the current state limitations required. The board is required to improve on an annual basis and will be able to review the data at the end of each school year prior to the approval for the next school year. And I have some data from the 1920 students, and this was pretty important. As you know, the school year continues throughout the summer. So we're collecting data from summer school, migrant summer school, et cetera. So for the 1920 school data, 224 students out of 466 seniors at Forest Grove High School and Calc had less than 16 classes, which is 48% of the total student population of the senior class. Of the 224, 51.8% were Caucasian, 43% were Latinx, roughly 5% of other, 2 or more self-identified racial demographics. With a board approval to allow students to take less than 7 of 8 classes each semester, 106 students took advantage of this. 37 of the 106 took 13 of 16 classes for the year, 7 one semester and 6 classes the next semester. 43 of the 106 took 12 of 16 classes for the year, 6 each semester, or 7 and then 5 for last year. 19 of the students of the 106 took 11 of 16 classes for the year. That's 6 one semester and 5 the next semester. And 7 of the 106 took 10 of 16 classes for the year, 5 each semester. For the 106 students, demographics, that was 52%, 52.8% were Caucasian, and 42%, 42.5% were Latinx. Of the 224 students out of the 466 seniors that took an open period, all graduated but one. The one student was on an IEP and was in an SEC program who, for mental health reasons, had release at the end of each day of the second semester and is still enrolled with us and continuing their educational program and is on track this year to graduate. So looking at that data, the flexibility was very successful for the students in terms of graduating. We're coming to you today, and Karen O'Neill and Brian Burke are on this item with me to answer any questions that you might have.
John, do we have a copy of that data in the packet?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think you do. I think we do, yeah.
Yeah, I printed it out right before the packet. It's looks like this.
Nope. So John, I
We
just
did that a lot in Zoom meetings.
I just have a question,
Sure.
So if it's correct that a student can get 8 credits a year now.
Yes, sir.
For
It is.
4 years, that'd be 32 credits. And so, your freshman year, you get 8, your sophomore year, you probably get 8, you're at 16 and you don't have many more credits to go in the last 2 years. Do we think that, I mean, it's about 48% or 50%, 48% this year, 224. So do we think that number, do we anticipate that number increasing over the years? Or
we're not sure. And to be honest, what we have today could change significantly as the year progresses. Very important, in terms of planning for hybrid, is reducing student cohorts. The number of students within a cohort. The state allows only 100 at this time in terms of their matrix. So the high school did a very creative solution in terms of, well, I'll let Karen O'Neill talk about that. And then Brian, if you have any, follow-up data to date. But remember, that's today, that number, as life happens, particularly in a worldwide pandemic, is likely to increase throughout the year due to unique circumstances. But Karen?
Yes, I think we actually talked about this in one of our earlier presentations, just our thoughts behind, why go 9 weeks, why go a quarter, focus on 4 classes. So really trying to not only make it manageable to kids, but also to our staff. And then also, just as we were trying to, when we did our blueprint, our intention was to plan for a hybrid model for half of our kids to come in on Monday and Tuesday. And the other half are learning from home live, and then flip it for Thursday and Friday. And with the information, the guidance that we were provided by ODE, really the only way that we could figure out how to even come close to establishing cohorts was really those 4 classes and putting class sizes at 30 to 32, just given the sizes of our classrooms and all of the restrictions through that guidance. So it, as Brian can attest, was they're not strong enough words. It was so challenging to try and get those cohorts established with fidelity. And it's still a challenge, especially when we have the electives we do and the special populations we do. establishing and maintaining those cohorts is a lot. And again, with our 9-week quarters, where every 9 weeks students earn a semester credit, we don't know what kind of flexibility we're going to need as we go into the spring, right? So our seniors who, you know, potentially this first 2 9-week quarters get done with their English, maybe their government, and so they still have econ. You know, we just don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know if we can incentivize enough for kids to continue to take a full schedule and 3 or 4 or 3 of 4. We think we can, but you know, this is really uncertain. Brian, I know you have a few things to add, so jump in there.
Well, I mean, just like this past month, I probably had maybe a dozen meetings with families, senior parents who are, and their students who are looking at, can they finish early? And of all those meetings, I think we've had 2 that still want to try and finish early. The other ones, there's enough reasons to not finish early. One of them is to remain eligible for Oregon Promise, because you have to enroll in college within 6 months of graduation. You know, the other one is to, once you share the amount of dual credit AP offerings, you know, kids are leaving Forest Grove High School with, and I can speak, you know, just personally, with 50 college credits when they're going to OSU or U of O or state colleges. So we've been trying to just talk about, you know, the positive side of staying here and the free education you get while you still get college credit. That seems to have worked. The 2 where it didn't work, the one kid is pretty set on going to the Marine Corps and going early, and the other one is has a parent who works at PCC and does not need Oregon Promise. And so it's been unique. You know, many are asking about it, but very few are following through with graduating early. On the other side of, you know, taking less classes, they can't go below 3 of 4. So last year we had them taking 5 of 8 in a semester. So if you take the 2 quarters together, they're going to have 6. There's just, because we cannot have a kid just taking 2 of 4 classes. So this year, I think there will be more kids who may look for that option, but there won't be as many who have, you know, less than 6. So
And then,
right now, so go ahead.
in a normal year, Brian, for athletics, is it 5 classes? Is that correct?
5, yeah. And this year it's 3. So, you know, and the promise of, well, not the promise, the possibility is a way better word for athletics and activities in the spring has also helped keep kids to want to stay engaged in school and see what happens. This quarter, we have 138 seniors who have 1 release period of a list of 400. I have 457. I know it doesn't show that on the enrollment, but I have 457 seniors on our list, and 138 have a early release or late arrival or honors block. And they're not supposed to have a block if they're not on track. So,
Mr. Burke, this is Nars. I have a question. You mentioned athletes. What's going on with that right now? Are students able to practice on their own, or are they going on to the high school, or what is going on?
There are some, and I'm not sure which seasons are actually meeting right now, but there are some teams that are having limited activities, and there's all kinds of rules about what kind of activities they can do. So there are some activities going on campus, but the OSAA seasons, as they're scheduled, as far as I know, I think the winter sports, typical traditional winter sports season starts December 28th. And then I think the next one is the typical fall season starts somewhere in February. And then your typical spring ones, I think, start in April as they're scheduled right now. So they're able to have kids here after school hours in very small numbers, and they're following all the social distancing and testing and other protocols.
Is the testing done by the school, or is it a external contractor coming in, or are they sent out?
I don't know the exact. Doug would be the best one. And maybe I shouldn't have said testing, but they're doing the check-in. So each coach does it.
Yeah, my kids have been going to it. They do a contactless thermometer and have the same 4 questions that if you go to the doctor, they ask you there. And then they're sanitizing and all that stuff too.
Okay, so they're not doing like rapid testing or anything like that?
No.
Oh.
No, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brian and Karen. I'm just curious, and maybe I should have phrased it. This is a unique year, but down the road, year after year, it'll be interesting to see when students have opportunities for 32 credits. Do you know what I mean? What that's going to look like in mostly your senior year, maybe your junior year a little bit. It's freshman and sophomore will be business as usual, I'd imagine. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that over time, I think. Okay, any other questions? If not, would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that we approve Senate Bill, tell me the numbers.
Well, flexibility of.
Okay, well, I move that.
I second.
Okay. All right. So this is flexibility of instructional hours. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded, which is fine. And I'm a yes. Val?
Yes.
Norce?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
And Brad?
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Let's see, our next action item is the Forest Grove Education Association contract ratification for 2021, and that's Kevin Noreen.
So I think I'm going to just say a couple of words before Kevin comes on, because of these next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items are really, I wanted to talk a little bit about all of them and why they're coming to you. Since March 12th, we've been in a sprint pretty much every day with the ever-changing mandates coming out of the state, and kind of we get going in a direction and then our next mandate comes down. I think through this whole situation, it's been a team effort. Our licensed, our classified, our confidential, and our administrators working together. We've made this about as good as it was going to get, at least in my mind. That's why I'm here. As we bring these contracts in front of you, the thinking behind that was we've done this together as a team. That's why Kevin will talk through the specifics, but we've pretty much laid it out that everybody's going to get the same COLA and get the same insurance cap. There's some other little pieces, but that's we were recommending it. That's why we brought it to you this way. I will say I did a poor job of communicating this to board members, and I'll own that because of I did that poorly, and that wasn't fair. There's some things that I know in our board agreements we talked about not surprising folks, and I realized that I did that. So I'll fix that going forward. But I just wanted to make sure everyone understood why we're bringing you what we're bringing you. And just helping to tell all of our folks we did this as a team, and I appreciated that. So that's it. And I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to kind of talk the specifics.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks, Chair Everett and board members. So you'll see in your packet, and I will just summarize the write-up. But as you see from the presentation, that we're in a 3-year contract. This is very similar to the 3-year contract that we are in with our classified OSEA group, with a 1-year financial reopener. So we had a great negotiations team. I would say for a financial reopener, this is probably the longest reopener bargaining that we've had that I can remember in all my experiences negotiating. So I want to thank Dave Parker, Eileen Clute, Kim Shear, Chair Mark Everett, Brian Hungerford, Brian Burke, and Juliana Kelly, all on the team there. So on September 24th, we did reach a tentative agreement on both salary and insurance increases. And they are the exact same agreement that we reached with the Oregon School Employees Association, OSEA, which is a 2% base salary increase and a $10 increase in the insurance premium cap. The district also negotiated with and agreed to language with FGEA around clarifying the in-district credit awards, and also agreed to give certified members an opportunity to be paid up to 4 hours of time at the curriculum rate of pay for work outside of their non-contract time, where they worked on comprehensive distance learning planning, the hybrid model Canvas, and Zoom. And we are using carryover building site council funds to fund that portion of the agreement. I did receive a text from FGEA, the OEA representative, Sarah Moskoff, that the membership did approve the tentative agreement on last Friday, October 9th. And so with that, we bring before the board for ratification the tentative agreement for the 2020-2021 school year. Happy to take any questions.
Kevin, this is Marce. I have a question, and it might be in the package, so I apologize if I didn't see it. What would the cost be for each of the groups, which would be the classified and then the teachers, right, and administration? Those are the three groups.
And we also are bringing up the confidential supervisory group tonight as well. Yes, I don't have those total costs. Those amounts were presented or factored into the budget. So those are the amounts that were budgeted in this year's school budget. But unfortunately, in RSA, I don't have that total amount of what that cost would be.
Okay. And is there, would this have an impact on anything else that we might need to do in regards to bigger picture? I guess it's hard to answer if we don't know what the dollar amount is. And what I mean by that is, for example, are there any other pending things that we might need? And I know that, you know, that the Federation and everybody's looked at these numbers, but I'm just kind of looking at big picture for whether, can we afford it, I guess, is the question. Can we afford it? You know, it's one question. Number two is like, is there a possibility that in 2-3 months we might come back and say we're negative, I'm just making this up, $100,000, when we didn't think about holistically the big picture?
So I would say that we are looking at the whole holistic. We do have to negotiate with these employees groups. Their current contract is no longer good. This is the amount that was built into the budget. So all of your forecasts that you've seen has these numbers already built into them. But you bring out there is a risk, right? We do not know kind of where we're going to be at the end of this school year. We've saved, Eileen will be presenting coming up in a board meeting in the near future, kind of where we're at. We've continued to save money and are continuing to save money as we're in CDL instead of in-person instruction. The question is going to be, what is it going to cost next year? We're beginning to hear some numbers out of the state around what they think current service level will be. There is a big budget deficit at the state level that they're going to have to work on. We've got money coming out of SIA, but we have no idea if that's going to cover the general fund deficit or what amount of it is. So there's a lot of risk out in front of us. What I would say is we'll end up dealing with that in about 3 months, we're going to be bargaining again, because we have a full contract to do with both licensed and classified. And at that point, we'll be looking at our budget and beginning to look at what we can afford and what we can't afford. That's my take on it. I'm sure there's other discussions with other board members who would have other thoughts.
I have one more question. You know, I was looking at all like the salary tables, and it has like, you know, people's, like not the people, but the actual titles. And there was one that just kind of jumped at me that I'm just curious in regards to the disparity of salary. So my question is that salary of this particular position, I'll share what it is. Is it state funded or is it federally funded? And that's the migrant education coordinator, where, and I don't know who that person is, but it's making like 40-some thousand, which I kind of did just a quick comparison with, you know, maybe an assistant principal or some sort of administrator. Why is there such a big disparity?
So in the past, I mean, in 2012, when they made a cut on that position out of the administrative, they went to a person who is confidential. Am I talking about the right position there, Kevin? Yeah, yes.
Yes.
I think you bring up a really excellent point, one that I want to talk about, which is moving forward, we need to start talking about our work around second language students and our work around equity in our district. Yes, we need to start talking about an administrative position that's leading that. Leonard has done an awesome, I mean, he has been a great leader, but I think, well, and that's Kathy, okay. There is some good conversation to be had here about how we want to restructure that aspect of our organization. And I would love to sit down and have some of these conversations very soon.
Okay. Yeah, it was just very glaring. I'm like, whoa, this is really, there's a huge disparity here. And my mind immediately went to, are we not valuing the work of, I'm just looking at the position title, you know, again, I don't know who's in those particular positions, but it was big disparity, just sends a message.
Yep.
Okay, other questions or for Kevin or John? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I second.
Okay. So I will do a roll call vote here. I'm a yes. Kate?
I'm a yes.
Narce?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
And Brad?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes. The next is the Forest Grove Administration Association contract for 2020 and 2021. Again, Kevin.
Okay, thank you. So again, as Superintendent Parker discussed at the very beginning, with all of our employee groups, we had agreed to 2 years of financials, meaning that this year, 2020, 2021 was yet to be agreed to or discussed. And so we did participate in a confer and consult process on October 6th with our administrative group. And as you'll see from the write-up again, the same proposal is being recommended for the cost of living increases and the insurance premium cap. So it's 2% of a base salary increase and a $10 on the insurance premium cap. So that's what's being presented to the board tonight for 1 year.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, questions for Kevin?
Well, I have a comment, a couple of comments. And, you know, I'm concerned as a board member of a couple of things, is that we have known that the administrators are at the top end of the salary and in Washington County, and there's an advantage and there's also a disadvantage. The advantage is that we can get candidates to come to our district because we pay well. But I think we're very top heavy in where we're at that percentage, and we did the numbers in the past. The second thing is that I think our administrators are well paid, and I look at the numbers of, and I hope it's not the real number, is 362 students. And the cost of the loss of revenue, and also I think we should be saving every dollar that we have. And the third thing is that our community is hurting. And what is the message that we're sending to our community? I just, I know I talked to Narcy about this, and she shared some things about how many the cuts were at Pacific. And so I think that everybody's done a terrific job. I think people have jumped in. But if we continue to give the administrators a 2% as we go forward, they're always going to be up, way up. And I'd rather to see them, above 50%, but I don't know. I just can't support this. So that's my 2 cents.
Kevin, I have a question. So
Sure.
you said this was a 1-year contract, so it would just be for this school year presently, and then it's reopened and negotiated.
That's correct. Yes, these are all
Okay.
1-year financial agreements, right?
Okay, thank you.
Are these 1 year for only the administrators or for all groups?
Well, we actually we have agreements and contracts. So with the unions, right? Because none of these other groups are non-union groups. Okay, so with the 2 unions, we have 3-year.
Got it.
We entered into 3-year contracts.
Got it.
We do employment agreements for all of our other, for our confidential supervisory, which would be the next group, and then the administrators and the cabinet are employment agreements. And then salary is decided ultimately and approved by the board. And this 3 years ago, we brought forward a 2-year financial package for those groups and left the 3rd year, just like we left the 3rd year with the classified and with the teachers unions. Did I answer your question?
It did, but we still don't know the dollar amount, right? Or we know it, but we don't have it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for giving you a total dollar amount for what these increases cost. Like I said, this was something back during the budget process that I believe was talked about in terms of what we were budgeting for this coming school year, and these were the amounts that were proposed in the budget.
I'm a new member, so I'm just trying to figure out the cycle.
Absolutely.
In the routine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just feel like I don't have enough information to be able to make a solid decision. So I'm just wondering if there's a possibility of maybe tabling it unless there's a time period here to figure out what's the dollar amount, how does this fit in the big picture? Is there a potential impact? Will we need this money later? Because I don't know how much it is. Is it 100? Is it 200,000? And what are the optics? Do we have a message ready to send out with it as well? And then the other question is, what are the other school districts surrounding us doing also? I don't know.
Well, I'll jump in here and say that last year, Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but last year, I believe the administrators received a 1%.
That's correct.
And so this year it would be 2%. So over 2 years, it would be 1.5% per year, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And this was in the budget. This is what was budgeted for this school year, correct?
Right. Yeah, that's what was factored in when Eileen developed the budget with Superintendent Parker.
Right. Okay.
And to answer Narce's question, yes, you could table this, and if there's more information that you need, we can get that. But I can tell you there's 23 administrators here, and this raise is going to be $1,000, $2,000. So the total amount of money for the administrators is like $50,000, and that's not an exact number, and we can get you that exact number. But the amount of money is not going to be, compared to our other groups, it's going to be a much lower number. If you want that, we can we can table this. Again, part of the mistake in my communication is we probably should have put this on as a future action item and then allowed this discussion to happen. And for if there's questions like these, you know, I get it. I would do this differently next time. So
I'm just wondering what other board members think as well. You know, I'm just thinking here out loud. Usually we prepare, I have time to be able to make a solid decision based on the information presented. So I'm just feeling a little out of the context and out of the water here. But I do want to say that I do know how hard everybody has worked, you know, as a board member and as an administrator myself. You know, I'm finding myself with a bias because I'm an administrator myself, and I know how many hours are put in. You know, I probably get 3-4 hours of sleep just based on what I call it's like trying to build a city on top of a city. In this case, trying to build a school on top of a school. So it's not that I don't appreciate the work that the administrators do, because I do. I'm just trying to just figure it out here. That's all. So whether we table it or not, it's an idea I'm putting out there. Yeah.
Here's kind of what the other districts are doing. Hillsborough had a 3-year agreement and they were up above 3%. I don't know the exact amount because they didn't actually negotiate this year. Tigard Tualatin did 2.5 and $40+ on their insurance cap. Let's see. I think Gaston was about 3.5%. They negotiated last spring for this year. Beaverton was 0%. They had a whole deficit that they were dealing with. So they're working through that. But that's basically where the rest of Washington County is.
Hey, Narce, I'm going to chime in because you asked about how the rest of us felt. And the COLA raise is a cost of living raise, and it's never going to even out or equal out to really what the cost of living is. I mean, I feel like our teachers for sure deserve a lot more than we can afford to pay them, but that's just how it is. As Mark brought up, our admin received a 1% raise last year. While Kevin, what did our certified and classified? Did they get the 2% or were they at 1.5?
No, they were, I'd have to get that out. It was either 2 or 2 1/4.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought it was at least 2 as well.
Yeah.
So I guess at this point, it's like everybody's worked hard. And I think that they are a team and everybody deserves it. Do I think that some of the salaries are a little inflated? Yes, for sure. But I don't think right now is the time to say that they shouldn't get a cost of living because they are inflated, in my opinion. I think that when we see the trends of the enrollment going down or based on what the budget has, and when we negotiate these items, that would be the time to talk about this stuff. But as of right now, I would support them getting their 2%, just like the certified and classified.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that just in terms of the process, we've gone through the process, we've budgeted the amount, we've negotiated. I realize that Dave wants to throw himself under the bus by not saying that he didn't communicate with us, but I think that at this point in the game, I think that we know that the money's there. It might be a different game next year, obviously. But I think that, in my opinion, I think we need to move forward with supporting all groups.
And I concur with that. And so I guess what I'm saying is we'll proceed to see if we have a motion to approve in a second, and we'll go with a vote.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the administrator's agreement for this year.
Second.
Okay. All right, we'll call for the vote, and I'm a yes. Brad?
Yes.
Kate?
No.
Okay. And Val?
Yes.
And Narce?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we're on to the next action item, number 6 this evening. That's a confidential supervisory contract for 2020, 2021. And I know, Kevin, I'll just give you the floor. It's the same, I think, as.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Everett. Thank you. So yeah, this and Narsa, you've noted and I'm more than happy to meet with you to talk more about who makes up this group. So because we have confidential groups which are defined under the state statute in terms of there are definitions behind that, and then folks that are supervisory but are not at a full administrator level. So that's what this group entails. And again, you'll see in the write-up here the same proposal. We had a confer and consult process with them, met with them, and again are coming to you with a recommendation of the similar to the other groups to the 2% cost of living increase, as well as the increase of $10 on the insurance premium cap. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, no questions. Hearing no questions, I'll entertain a motion. I'll move that we approve the confidential supervisory contract for 2020, 2021.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll call for the vote. I'm a yes. Marcy?
Yes.
Okay. Brad?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
And Val?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. The next item, number 7, is a superintendent contract, and I'm presenting that one. It's the same as it has been this evening. It's for Superintendent Parker, it's a 2% increase and a $10 increase on the cap. So comments or questions?
I have a question, just so I understand. Is a 2% increase in addition to what we just talked about, or is it different?
It's just a 2%, just as all the other groups.
It's just the other, okay.
Yeah, same.
His is just a separate contract, or say.
Got it. But it's 2%, it's not 4.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So go ahead.
I also have, actually, you should handle this one, but Eileen found some of the costing information around those other contracts, so I can give you some of those pieces. If you want them, or I can push them out I'll push them out in a Friday memo so that you guys know what they are.
Okay.
Kind of
Are you talking about the numbers, Dave, for the groups? Is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Just what those costs are.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the superintendent contract.
I move that we approve the superintendent's contract as presented.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay. And call for the vote. Val?
Yes.
Narse?
Yes.
Kate?
No.
Brad?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so that motion passes. Last on the list this evening is the Assistant Superintendent Chief Academic Officer contract for 2020 and 2021. Mr. Parker.
Yeah, and again, it's the same. I know it's the same exact piece, which is we're trying to give all of our employees a 2% COLA and a 1% or a $10 bump to their cap. Again, John's done great work for us, but these arguments aren't really, I know that these arguments really aren't against the people. It's about the position, and I understand these pieces. So I just want to say that, again, I appreciate the work that John's done for us, and I think he deserves the same as everybody else, which is 2% and $10.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward with, does somebody want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the assistant superintendent contract for the 2021 school year.
All right, I'll second that, and we'll call for the vote. So I'm a yes. Val,
Yes.
Kate,
No,
Narce,
Yes.
and Brad.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. I think that wraps up the action items for this evening. We're on to future. Oh, go ahead.
Mark,
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify something that I saw in the packet surrounding the agreements and the contracts. It had the extra duty schedule in there, the amounts and the positions that they're being paid for. I was wondering, are we paying extra duty right now?
So I'm gonna have Kevin kind of talk through that, where we're at with that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, so we went ahead and set a meeting, gosh, it was probably August, right around the start of the school year. And so Karen, myself, Doug Thompson, and Eileen Clute met with the folks that were scheduled to be doing an extra duty assignment this year. We went ahead and actually created a form and had all of them fill this out, where we had them explain and tell us how they planned on carrying out their extra duty assignments this year, talked about how they're going to engage and reach out to students, what resources they might need. And so based upon what we received and we reviewed that as a team, I would say for the most part, not all, because there were a few that we are currently not paying, but I would say definitely the majority of those folks submitted. And both, in talking with Karen and Doug and Eileen, when we reviewed them, we felt that they were going to be reaching out and doing, just like we're asking teachers to do in a distance learning model. And so we are paying many of those at the full extra duty amount. We're having labor management tomorrow because we are still having discussions around the athletic stipends, just based on what Brian Burke talked about tonight about, looking at, are these seasons going to happen? What kind of engagement has been happening with our student athletes? Yeah.
You said at the full amount.
Right. Yeah.
So do you think that it's even possible to do their extra duty fully? I mean, what is, like, as an example, what would the supervisor of athletic events be doing?
Oh yeah, I would say I'm trying to make a distinction between athletics and non-athletic.
Okay. Well, what about the band director? They're not having any performances. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, he currently provided some information and a proposal on how he plans to engage students in doing other types of performances when you're not obviously going to be able to do it as a full ensemble or a full group that way.
Okay, a couple of things. If it's possible, I would like to see a list of who we're paying and what, and I'd also like to know kind of what their duties are and how they're going to be held accountable for it. I don't have a problem paying people for these positions at all. I think it's great when our students are involved, but I do have a problem paying for something that I'm not getting a service for. Like, this is all the taxpayers' money, and like, to just, we're really going to say that we're going to pay people the same rate this year for, we don't even know if they're going to get to do the work, let alone fully like they have in the past.
Sure.
But I would also say, though, I mean, I understand the point of view, but the activities now are probably more important than they've ever been, which is with our kids holed up in their rooms with their Chromebooks, finding ways for us to reach them through these activities is probably more critical than ever. And I understand your point of view on this, and
I would agree, but I haven't seen that. I haven't seen any activities or them reaching out to do anything. And that's my point. So I agree. I mean, they cut leadership at NAMS, so that's not happening. So like, while you're telling me it's more important now than ever, it's not happening and we're still paying them.
Okay, let's put together a presentation on what we are doing. And that way
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I'm interested in that as well, only because I do have a hard time seeing how maybe what is traditionally done for some of these positions, how it could be done now in terms of not that maybe they're working with students, but they're not working with, I mean, I guess I think about coaches and how many kids you'd be coaching typically, and maybe now you're limited to smaller groups. And so I have a little bit of interest in this as well. So that would be good to kind of look into that, I think. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
I have a comment. Just that I think it might be maybe evaluate the process, Dave, in terms of a metrics to see what's exactly happening. So, I mean, it's one thing to set up a plan in the beginning of the school year and say, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Well, you know how much things have changed since the last time we sat down and said, we're going to do this. So maybe some type of update about what we're actually doing and what the metrics are that we're going to use in terms of quantifying how they're earning that contract money.
Yep. We
Thank
can
you.
do that. Yep.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, let's see. So we'll leave the action items and go into future action and discussion. We've got, looks like about 4 items here. So the first one is the superintendent goals for 2020 and 2021, and that's Mr. Parker. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. So last time around, we kind of had our first go at these. I've added a couple of pieces. I put in the asterisk. Brad asked me to kind of highlight which ones we felt like we're going to be able to get to. So you'll see kind of an asterisk in front of the action steps. This first one, develop and implement plans, moving the district from comprehensive distance learning to hybrid model. It's really the chief work that we have going on this year. So, I mean, this is definitely, we put in some kind of evidence that we would be using to determine whether or not we're hitting those pieces. I also developed measures for evaluating the progress of students and the CDL program. So this was something that was asked for me to insert into these goals. And so we've done that with also kind of some measurements of where we might be able to determine that. There will be some IAP results, so we will have some testing that will tell us a little bit about where we're at. Update and implement the strategic plan. Again, we've got a lot of work done. I don't think we need to recreate this, but this again is an area for us to work on. For me this year to try and get this refocus is really a high priority. How far we're going to get on it, I'm not sure about yet, but I've placed those in there. And then the last one here is enact systemic change for our historically marginalized students. This is one that that is resonating with me very, very strongly. One, building inside of our district a recognition of the high priority that we need to place on fixing some things in our system. Ensure all educators have an understanding of the role we play in systemic racism. I'm producing some data for our district equity team meeting on Wednesday around, over the past 20 years, how are we doing on really impacting these historically underserved groups? I can tell you that we're not really moving that dial, and I'll come back and present you the actual data, but we've got to start making getting some traction with this. We need to continue to expand on the school equity teams that we currently have. We've got to create a behavioral and health system that supports all of these students. We're a long ways forward on that part of it. Our Cassie, Kenny, and Kim have a lot of things already in place that part of the program is actually moving very quickly. And then this last piece here is we've got to start taking a look at how how we can begin to look at our schools and start making progress inside of these schools. And that's going to mean we need to do some resourcing differently. And Narce brought up this question about, do we have the right system for ELL? Do we have the right people in the right positions with the right power? Those are all questions that I'm spending a lot of time thinking about right now. This is really the main work, I think, of us and the district right now, is trying to start really digging into this. And those are my 3 goals. I think I've made some additions. You might have more additions that you're looking for, but these were the notes that we took from the last time around. Questions or additions?
Dave, I believe we finalized these on the 26th. Is that?
I took a bunch of notes on. Yes, I think on the 26th we'll vote on them.
Okay, got it.
And if you have ideas or other things you want us to add, I think it's I'm open.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I think there weren't a lot of comments on this, but certainly I think as people look at it again, and when we come back on the 26th, if there's any, would you be okay with folks contacting you between now and then with any suggestions or?
Absolutely. Again, I want to make sure that I'm meeting the expectations of the board. So this is any comments you have, I'm open to.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. The next action, or I'm sorry, future action item is the superintendent evaluation criterion timeline, and that is in your packet. And get to it here. So the timeline is there. It is, Kathy, this is similar to what we had last year.
Yes, this is very close. I just adjusted a little bit, obviously, because we started a little bit late, but this is exactly what we did last year.
Yep.
Same with the evaluation criteria. It's the same criteria you've used in the past.
Right. Okay. And it looks like if working backwards from this, I'm looking at the May 10th date. That's the date that we have to have the summative eval done and shared. And is that correct? May 10th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's a hard date, right? Is that right, Kathy?
Yes, based on Dave's contract, you can agree to change it if you both agree.
Okay.
So we can look at this and maybe talk about it again in board leadership before you approve it, in case there's some adjustments you want to make.
Okay.
On the way the year is going.
I'm not asking because I anticipate that, but it's kind of an odd year. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. So this is a discussion and I guess a future action item. So I don't know if board members have any questions or comments about the timeline. Now we're not taking any action on it this evening. Does anybody have any question or comment about that tonight? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the budget development calendar, and that is Eileen.
You're still muted.
Hey, Eileen, do you want me to do that for you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm having difficulties with my computer today. Thank you for having me tonight. In the board packet is a draft of the 2021 board budget process. This is the public budget calendar. It includes all of the external items for public budget meetings and discussion. It does follow the prior year's calendar. It has one change in it. In the last couple of years, we've done the alternative meeting. The budget proposed budget on a Thursday, and then an alternative meeting on Tuesday, and then the third meeting that Thursday. So it's 3 quick meetings together. This year, with the way that the calendar fits, we were able to put it one every Thursday. So it's Thursday every week for 3 weeks instead of being so tight. It just gives us more time to plan and you guys more time to really look through everything. That is the only significant change that we made this year.
Okay, Eileen, the only thing I would say to the calendar is, I think I saw June 9th as the date for certifying the budget. And I think I probably said this last year, but we, keeping in mind maybe that we might have to move it as far down, sort of down the road as possible, just because I have no idea how they're going to do money and how we're going to do a budget with kids all over the place. I just don't know. So the only thing I would say is I'd be an advocate if we need to later to move it down the road farther. But
And that's a great point, Mark. The reason why we do it is the budget hearing is scheduled for the June 14th meeting. And the reason why we do it on the June 14th meeting is because if we don't have everything done, it still gives us time for one more board meeting in the month of June to be able to push that out and compress it. So that's why we shoot for the first one, but we know that second one is kind of our cushion.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll, that again, that's a future action item. So, okay, with that, we are not adjourned, but we're at our last item of the evening, future board items, board discussion. Anything board members have they'd like to bring forward now? Okay.
So I'll bring back the extra duty. We'll kind of get that set up and bring that back towards the board, right? And we'll present it.
Yes, please. Also, could you include if they have, if an extra prep is included with that extra duty position?
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting. This meeting is adjourned and it looks like it's 7:23 p.m. So thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of your evening. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.